Good morning. I hope all of you enjoyed those photos while you're waiting for the event to start. Those were all photos taken this school year, as you could probably tell. We are so glad that you're here today. My name is Jennifer Webb, and I am very happy to be the Director of Enrollment Management and Financial Aid at Flint Hill. We are also very happy that you are here joining us today to learn more about our upper school. We do have an event planned for you today to make the best use of your time. So I'll tell you a little bit more about the event before I go into that, I want to point out a couple features here. Most of us are used to these things, but just so you know, we have everyone muted for the best sound quality, but we do want you to engage. So please do use that chat feature that is here, as we want to hear your comments. We want to hear your questions. We're really excited that you're here, and this event is all for you. So don't be shy about using that chat function and sending us your questions and comments. Also, I see some of you have cameras on, some of you don't. That's fine, whatever your comfort level is. We love to see your face and get to know you, but also understand there's various reasons we might be more comfortable with our camera off this morning. So we'll leave that up to you. I want to point out Julie Lewis and Lauren South, who are here with us today. They are upper school officers. They'll be helping moderate the chat today. And if you decide to apply, or for some of you continue with the application process, then you will certainly be working closely with them if you aren't already closely in contact with them. In terms of our event this morning, a little bit more about the agenda. In just a moment, I'm going to turn it over to our headmaster, John Thomas, and he'll tell you a little bit more about Flint Hill generally. And then he will introduce the assistant director of the upper school, Debbie Ayers, and she will share with you more about upper school at Flint Hill. And she'll also introduce some parents and some current students that are at Flint Hill already, so that you can ask them questions. They also have some information prepared for you so that you can start to understand Flint Hill from the experience and perspective of a current parent or a current student. And then at the very end of the event, we'll talk a little bit about next steps in admission, what opportunities exist now, what opportunities exist later, and what it's like to go through and complete the admission process. So at this point, I will go ahead and turn it over to our wonderful headmaster, John Thomas. John, it's all you.
All right. Thanks, Jennifer. And it's great to see all of you and to welcome you to school. And, hearing a title like headmaster, you may think, what in the world is that? Just an easy way to keep it in perspective is, a lot of times if this was a live event, I would have been greeting you at the door and welcoming you to Flint Hill. And then a lot of times I'm at the door saying goodbye to people when they leave different events. And I had done that one day when a third grader and a woman, it turned out to be her aunt, were leaving. And I talked to them for a minute, and they were overheard walking down the sidewalk, where the aunt said, "So who was that nice man we just met at the door?" I said, "Oh, that's Mr. Thomas. He's our school's mascot." So, it really doesn't matter what your role is here. And we do take the idea of being Huskies very seriously. A lot of schools, the Husky, your mascot, is just for athletics. We use the Iditarod dog sled race as a metaphor for our educational journey, our life journey. And some days it's got to be breathtaking and beautiful, and other days it's got to be the scariest thing in the world. And you wonder, how did I get into this? But the deal is, we're all on that proverbial sled together. Nobody is more important than anybody else. We're doing it as a team. And if you were to ask a 4-year-old in our junior kindergarten program or a senior in the high school, so tell me about being a Husky, you would hear team, together, sled, all of it, because this is an adventure. And it's one that you all, as parents that are joining us, and even some students I see in there, we know this is all about getting educated. As parents, my wife and I raised 3 boys, and we had a very simple philosophy as they grew up: give them unconditional love and get them educated. And we know that getting them educated is all about relationships. It's all about learning. It's all about growth and development and improvement. And that's what you're doing right now. You're taking a look at us and trying to figure out whether Flint Hill could fit into that that matrix as we look to the future, an exciting future. And I will tell you, whether we were virtual or whether we were live on campus, our teachers came together with the parents and clearly with the kids, because we are student driven, in the most exciting, proactive way possible. So to give you some idea of one of the big through lines in our school, so you do get to know us better, I'm going to share a slideshow with you. And so you got to just bear with me, where I'm going to turn my camera off so you really do focus on the slideshow. And let me see if I can pull up my muscle memory to get back to doing this. And hopefully this is going to go.
Yep, the slideshow is up, and now it's full screen.
Okay, good. Well, as I said, we have a number of through lines. Obviously, relationships are key here. The idea of having a balance in everything we do, a sense of innovation, and all of that is critical to what we're going to do. And as we kind of go through this, and you also get that link back to our Huskies with that idea of blaze your own trail and blazing the trail and doing that. Key to understanding us is ultimately the idea that everything we do here at school is very intentional, deliberate, strategic. And during this COVID period, we've learned clearly it's about safety and making sure that the kids are safe, the faculty are safe, and that we're doing everything to protect everybody. And as you get to know us today, as you hear parents talk and meet some students, as you take a look at this slideshow, please be thinking about the benefits for your children, not just the features, but clearly the benefits that'll truly make a difference. Because as you get to know us, I think you'll find very quickly, one of our benefits, I think, is because we're very entrepreneurial. We're a school that values making sure everything we do is relevant and dynamic, but at the same time, very personal, and trying to make sure that things are very meaningful. And clearly between school and parents, it's a partnership. And that's not something we take lightly. It's something we take very seriously. And for students who are with us, it's all about your active learning, being engaged in the learning process and realizing how important that is. We also try and make certain, by being this very intentional and deliberate process, that it's also intellectually engaging. How do we capture that drive I think young people thrive on, which is learning more and more about the world around them, making sure that they know whether it's about the technology we're using, or whether it's about the different classmates I now have, seeing my teachers as true mentors and people who ultimately will help inspire and direct me. All of that's critical. But I will tell you, the biggest through line that I think is important to us are our core values. We used to have 4 very direct core values: honesty, respect, responsibility, and compassion. And then we realized, going through an exercise a couple years ago, that a lot of schools have the same core values, that it really didn't distinguish us. But in fact, we think we are very action-oriented as a school. So we decided to take those 4 core values, expand them to 5, and really make them active, and really make them a part of how we learn from and with each other. And so I want to quickly walk you through those 5 values, and you'll get a chance to see why ultimately they're at the heart of exactly who we are. And we always lead with the idea of respect and value all equally. And in a world today that sometimes seems kind of out of whack and everything, this one is critical because it informs who we are, which means what we do, how we treat other people, how we interact with each other. It all comes back to respecting and valuing all equally. And we put an awful lot of time into making sure we develop a sense of equity and inclusion, that we want to make sure that everything we do is as welcoming as possible. I want everyone who joins us to feel like this is their school. And we have an incredible diversity here at school, whether it's racial diversity, whether it's religious diversity, different learning styles, different socioeconomic backgrounds, international diversity. If you've seen our website, you've seen maybe pictures of the upper school with the flags hanging. Years ago, when we first put those up, we had 56 different nationalities in our school family. We've now exceeded 115. That's a quiet gift our students get going to school with people from around the world, so that when they're having a visit at someone's house, they're hearing maybe other languages. They're meeting maybe grandparents who've come over from another country. They're hearing about different holidays, different experiences, and all of that is part of the Flint Hill experience. The idea of leading and supporting with compassion, reaching out to others, making sure people feel welcomed, making sure when people are struggling sometimes that there is a sense of empathy and care that is right there, that the people will step up to help you. Our teachers do office hours and things like that to make certain we're there for the students. We also take pride in the fact that we're a school that is not a pressure cooker. You can visit lots of great schools with great reputations, and in 5 minutes on that campus, you may realize it's a great school, but it's a pressure cooker. I can almost feel it. Well, our kids are taking a very demanding academic program, very involved in the arts and a very comprehensive program there, competitive athletics, lots of leadership opportunities. And yet, I think one of the benefits that we offer is that we really work to make sure it isn't a pressure cooker, that the kids know that people have their back. I got a wonderful letter that I shared with the faculty a few years ago. And it was from a young lady I'd gotten to know when she was at school, who had gone to UVA, did her undergrad at UVA, and then had stayed on and did med school. And she wrote me this note shortly after her graduation from med school. And she talked about how she was sitting in the audience as they were beginning to give out the diplomas, thinking, good Lord, how did I get here? A few years ago, I was this little girl. How did I get to, I'm now about to become a doctor. And she said all of a sudden she got flooded with memories of Flint Hill teachers. Teachers who were there for her when she struggled, teachers who helped guide her to get ready to take her MCATs, teachers who, met her and constantly mentored her along the way. And so she wrote me this letter saying, look, I've just had some great professors, but the people that have come to my mind on this very special day were the Flint Hill teachers. Acting with integrity. And when we were raising our 3 boys, honesty and integrity were critical to how we worked with them, what we expected of them and everything. And we do the same here at Flint Hill. We have got to be honest with each other. There has to be a sense of clarity, a sense of understanding, a sense of trust that we begin to build. And in fact, during this COVID period, not only last spring when we were all in lockdown, and then clearly this year where we were a bit of a hybrid in the upper school because we couldn't have all 570 kids in the building at one time, because we kept classrooms only at 12 students in a room and with physical distancing. And by the way, we use the term physical distancing because we want the kids to be social. Even though we had to have all these health protocols, we wanted them to be social. They need to make friends. They need to be with other kids. They needed to be with teachers. But through all of it, we also realized we needed to keep everybody informed. In fact, one of our guiding principles, the 3 leading things we tried to do through the COVID period: communicate, communicate, communicate. And that clearly went back to this idea of making sure that we were always acting with integrity, that parents knew exactly what we were doing, what our expectations were, and the students did as well. And I think it really did finally work and led everybody to have a successful year. The idea of responsibility evolved into imagine what's possible. Where is all this going to take us? What are we going to learn about the future? What skills have we developed? How are we getting ready for what's going to be down the road? And some of that has come from, we've imagined what's possible by the relationships we've built with outside groups. We have an incredible relationship with Apple Corporation. We've been Apple's site school for the state of Virginia now for almost a decade, where anybody, public or private schools, want to buy Apple products, they're advised to come visit Flint Hill. So we usually have had a steady stream of visitors in our classrooms, talking to our students, talking to the faculty about what they do. Apple even had me bring 9 teachers to Cupertino 2 years ago for an executive briefing, where not only were they sharing with us where they see technology going in education, but they were picking the brains of our teachers. What are you looking for? What do your students need? What should we be working on to make sure that our products are going to be serving you down the road? We've also made sure that we have taken advantage of being invited a few years ago to be in a group called INMEX, 15 large, complex independent schools around the country invited us to join them to talk about having like 2 campuses like we do, having, about 1,000 students, and some of them had more than that. How do we navigate that when that is really very different among independent schools? And it was exciting to be with schools from Los Angeles, from Hawaii, from Florida, from Detroit, from Baltimore, from Houston. All of it gave us a chance not only to benchmark with our local community of schools, but clearly to benchmark with the schools that are around the country to make sure that we are constantly thinking about best practices. And some of that looking beyond led us to build our incredible new middle school building, which we opened it this year, Peterson Middle School. It is a true model of what a school building should be. It is not your traditional straight halls and classrooms and all that. And one of the advantages of wearing a mask all year was every day when I would walk in that building, the kids couldn't see my jaw drop open because I was always in all of it. Well, I have the same feeling, to be honest with you, in our upper school. It's the first upper school I've ever been in where we've got trees growing in it. We've got gardens right in the middle of the building. I mean, it is a unique learning environment for kids and teachers. But all of it comes down to blazing the trail, making sure everybody has a chance to find their trail and to do that. And we're there to help in that process. A lot of our kids have gone on in the summers to what are called the governor schools, which are a great series of programs the state of Virginia offers for kids in public and private schools. And because it's so competitive, if a private school can get 1 or 2 kids in a summer, that's a big deal to brag that against all the big public schools you've been able to get these kids in. And these are for rising seniors. Our average number every summer has been 8 kids getting into that. Our robotics program is part of the Blazing the Trail. We'd gotten very involved in that a number of years ago. It hasn't happened, particularly we're still doing it, but they haven't had the competitions and the kids can't wait to get back to it next year, particularly our unmanned aerial program where they have to build a drone. And the last time we were in it 2 years ago, it had to go up 750 feet, had to go 5 miles, had to avoid obstacles, had to have a rover attached to it, had to drop that to the earth. That had to fly. We were invited to this competition for the 7th year in a row. 75 schools were invited. 71 were the engineering departments of colleges and universities. Only 4 high schools in America were invited. We were one of them. When the competition ended 2 years ago, a Canadian university had won it. Flint Hill came in second for the 2nd year in a row, first in the United States. And on the list of schools behind us were the engineering departments at Cornell, Harvard, Stanford, the U.S. Naval Academy. The first year we came in second, the beauty was the 3rd place team was a team from Virginia Tech. And our kids were excited because that meant 2 Virginia schools happened to have been in the top 3, which was wonderful. What I loved about it was the 3 engineering students on the Virginia Tech team were Flint Hill graduates. So realize that is finding ways to blaze the trail. We do it in athletics. We average between 12 and 20 of our kids go on to play college sports, but those are true scholar athletes. The same with art, going on to art institutes and music conservatories. And college counseling is right there at the end of the trail, trying to make sure that everybody is ready. So all of it, and all that I hope you'll hear the rest of this morning, is to begin to think about blazing the trail, students for you and for parents for your child, starting to do it. So I'm going to try and see if I can now unshare and come back. There we go. So that was rapid fire. And as you get to know me, you find I talk fast and I move because there's so much we're trying to do. And that's part of the excitement of being at Flint Hill, is that it is an active, dynamic place that is also very personal. And we are in this with the students, because I also want to make sure you realize that there are a lot of schools that are board driven, some that are faculty driven. We are student driven. And by that, I mean, there isn't a meeting we don't have where we ultimately don't come back to what's in the best interest of the kids. What do we do to make sure their experience is as relevant as possible? So I'll stop talking because people know I get going on Flint Hill and I could go forever. So I'm now going to turn it over to my wonderful friend and colleague, Debbie Ayers. Debbie and I started here at Flint Hill 16 years ago. We are part of a great cohort that started that year and have been here ever since. And Debbie's had multiple roles, but she is someone who's been in the classroom, been in the learning center. It's been our assistant director of the upper school and also our academic dean. You couldn't find somebody better to work with kids, work with parents, and clearly with our faculty to make sure our program is the best it can be. So, Debbie, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that introduction, and thank you for the message that you shared with us this morning. Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see all of you on a summer day. I hope your summers are off to a great start. And again, just appreciate you taking some time out to spend it with us this morning. As John said, this has been 16 years, getting ready to start my 17th at Flint Hill. I joined the school as a learning specialist. I have also taught history. I have been in the position of freshman class dean, various club sponsors, and currently I serve as the assistant upper school director and academic dean. I love being in the classroom, so whenever I can, I'm teaching a class. I also mentor the students who are pursuing independent studies at Flint Hill, and that is a program that's very exciting where students can look for topics of interest that maybe are not supported by a traditional class, and they research and develop a project and a deliverable on their own. And that's very exciting to mentor them through that process. But that is one of the responsibilities that I have. I'm also the advisor to the Academic Honor Council. And I think one of my most precious and prized roles has been as the parent of two students. My son graduated in 2010. He joined Flint Hill as a ninth grader. So some of you may be looking at our school for your rising ninth grader. And then my daughter graduated in 2012, and she began Flint Hill as a middle school student. So I'm looking forward to hearing some of your questions as we get into that segment. But I wanted to give you just a little bit of a background on the upper school from the perspective of benefits. So if you've already perused our website and you made your way to the upper school page, you saw in the early sentence about our students being known and being challenged and being supported. And I think that those are amazing benefits of the Flint Hill experience. And so I just wanted to take a snippet of your time before I introduce some of our parents and students to you to not just say those are benefits, but to tell you how we do that and how our students do benefit from those features. The known. We have small class sizes. Our class sizes are capped at 18. As John said, during the past year, we only had 12 in the classroom, but we were meeting with them on different days. And so our class sections are capped at 18. Most of them do not have a full 18 because we have enough sections to sort of spread them out. But that allows us to really know the students, to know that they're present, to interact with them, to call on them, to receive their input, to have plenty of presentation time during the class session because of the small size. We have them divided into advisories. So within the larger community, within their grade level, they also have a unique group. Back in the old school days, for me, it was a homeroom, but the advisory is more than a homeroom. It's where we're really building and connecting. We're working on our relationships. We're learning about each other, and we're growing in an experience that's social, but it's also meaningful in terms of developing students that are ready for college, that are ready for the world. And it's just interactive. Everything we do here isn't fill up the cup. It's everybody is coming and doing. We have opportunities for people to join clubs, for our students to start clubs. If they join us on campus and they're looking for something that we don't offer yet, they just suggest it and we try to make that happen. So the club offerings are varied by year based on what our students want. And so that is part of being known, being challenged. We help our students choose their courses. We don't just hand them our course catalog and ask them to make those decisions. We're very intentional about working with our students to maintain an awareness of what the college requirements are, what their diploma requirements are at Flint Hill, but also what might you be doing to develop a passion? What have you not explored yet that you may need to learn more about before you say, no, I don't want to take that, or yes, maybe I do. So those conversations to help them understand their course of study. That's very deliberate, very intentional, and that's part of challenging them to not only be learners, but to be engaged in their own process. We also set goals with them. As students are going through our program, we build in time for independent free time or study. That discretionary time I often talk to parents about as being so important as a college prep skill. We want them to have some time here where they are not being governed by a teacher, where they have to make the choice to prepare for a class or to ready themselves for a presentation or maybe an assessment, but to be able to use those minutes very wisely because they'll have so much more free time on their college campuses. We want them to begin to make good choices with that time that's available to them. So that's part of the challenge. And then the support, knowing that not just their advisor, not just parents, not just a classroom teacher are on campus to support them. We have so many staff resources. We have a help desk that helps them with their technology. We're a one-to-one laptop environment, and so we know that that comes with questions and challenges. So right here on campus, we have resources for them to talk with someone about their technology and their devices. We have a wonderful college counseling department, multiple members of that staff working with our students as they have questions at all grade levels, not just as they become seniors. We have a school nurse, we have a dean of students, we have grade level deans, our club sponsors, maybe a teacher that a student hasn't had in the classroom but gets to know that teacher because they sponsor the club. So your students would be exposed to a wide number of adults here who get to know them and help shepherd them through our program. And then we're always doing this in terms of developing skills that prepare them for college. What do they need to know? What do they need to learn to do in order to activate? So we often talk to kids about these action words, the verbs, like we want you to be a presenter. We want you to develop. We want you to demonstrate, to create, to evaluate. And so in order to do that, we have to build skills. We have to work on writing and critical presentation, critical analysis, and that is really at the core of our curriculum. Content is always there. We're always hoping our students have a thirst for knowledge, but with that knowledge, what do you do with it? How do you apply it to novel scenarios? And how do you present yourself clearly and effectively to another group, and whether that's your colleagues or the group that you're doing a presentation for marketing, or just to advance the body of knowledge on any given topic. So that's what we are hoping our students will do during their 4 years of high school. So whether you are looking at Flint Hill for the coming year or future years, we're so glad you're here today. We have an exciting program, and as John said, I could be a cheerleader for hours here, but I know that you want to ask some questions, and I want to get that panel started. We have 3 parents with us today, and we also have 3 of our current students here. So I'm going to ask for them to activate their cameras so you can see them now. We have with us on the parent panel, Sibel Unseld, Jill Stewart, and Christina Zanette. So in that order, Sibel, Jill, and Christina, if you would take the mic and introduce yourself, give our audience an indication of your students, what grade level or some participation that you have at Flint Hill. We'll start with the parents, and then students, hold on. We'll do the same with you next. The order that our students will present or introduce themselves are Corey Parker, then Patrick Fletcher, then Caitlin Morgan. So Sibel, I'm going to start with you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Debbie. Hi, everyone. My name is Sibel Unsel, and I have a rising senior. It's hard to believe, but a rising senior, Najati, and I am the Parents Association president, and my son has been here since kindergarten. Jill?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Jill Stewart. I am the parent of a graduated Husky, class of 21. My daughter attended and she began in 9th grade. And I am also the parent of a rising upper school student. My son will be part of class of 2025. And I volunteer whenever Sibel asks. And I'm willing to help and support the school in any way.
And hi, everyone. My name is Christina Zanetti. My son just completed his first year at Flint Hill, and he's a rising sophomore.
Thank you, parents. I'm going to turn it now to our students who are with us today. Corey, let's start with you, and then Patrick, and then Caitlin.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Corey Parker, and I'm a rising junior this year. Some of the activities I take part in at Flint Hill include the volleyball team. I'm also a part of the Young Activist Club and BSU. And yeah.
Good morning. My name is Patrick Fletcher. I'm a rising senior here. I attend in lacrosse, football, track and field. And in terms of clubs, I work with my friends in Best Buddies, which is a club for students with special needs. So.
My name's Caitlin. I'm a rising sophomore, and for activities that I do, I play lacrosse, and I was a junior ambassador last year.
Okay, great. Thank you to our panelists. So our sort of rules of engagement, and they're not really rules, but just suggestions. We have a chat feature. And if you would like to put your question in the chat, I will be monitoring that and can present the question to the right member of our panel, or perhaps answer it myself in some cases. You may also feel free to come onto the microphone and ask your question directly of any of our panelists, and we'll just proceed through for the next 10-15 minutes to answer as many questions as we can. So I'd like to start us off with a question, though, and I'll direct the question first to our students. Could you tell us about the general layout of a day of school? What is, and let's go not in a COVID year, because we're excited about coming back on campus. So what is a school day like for you students?
Prior to COVID, I would say our typical school day, we started off in advisory, which is the group of kids and one adult teacher that you're with for like the first 10 minutes of school. And that group kind of becomes like your first group of friends if you're incoming freshman. And after those 10 minutes with your advisory, you then go to your first period. And then how the school day is organized is it's green, blue, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. However, you don't have all of those classes every single day. But then the different days of the week are organized by A, B, C, D, E, and F. So it's a little bit confusing hearing it, but it's not that confusing when you're experiencing it. But every day you have different classes, so you're not, having every single class every single day. And after your first 2 classes, you'll then have town meeting, class meeting, long advisory, or just a break, and that changes every single day as well. And then you'll have the rest of your classes plus lunch within those last 2 classes. So that's how our typical day would go prior to COVID.
I'll go ahead and add on to what Corey was saying right there about how we have different schedules for each day, and it adds to the versatility. So that way you don't have the same class every day at the same time, and you kind of get a different feel for the class and just kind of how everybody can come together based on that time of day. And like she said, town meeting, everybody comes together. The whole school, we have announcements, different clubs they can do presentations for everybody. So it's a great time for the whole school to come together as a community and to kind of build that spirit and just see, what the track is for the school, like what path we're on.
We have a question in the chat box, and Caitlin, I may direct this one to you because as a freshman this year, you have had a freshman advisor. But the question from one of our parents is, do students stay with the same advisor for all 4 years? So can you explain to the group the process that you've gotten to participate in for your new advisor?
So I had a freshman advisor, and her name was Miss Wallitzer. I think she might be leaving, but we do not stay with the same advisory because this year we had like a survey for a bunch of different advisories that we wanted for sophomore year. And so to answer the question, no, we do not stay with the advisory for all 4 years.
Yes, and I'll just add on to that. Our students will have a freshman advisor because we believe that transition year is very unique. And so the advisors for freshman year are what you might consider experts in freshman topics, you know, getting acclimated to a new campus, getting acclimated to a new type of schedule, perhaps a longer school day, learning the ins and outs of different strategies for study that you might need in your high school courses. Once they hit their sophomore year, they will have an opportunity to look at the list of available advisors. And those, what I mean by available, their senior students have just graduated, so now they are back in the loop to receive a new set of students. And as Caitlin said, she was presented with that list of advisors and she was able to rank them. And then their rankings will be considered for placement, and the students will receive in August the name of their new advisor, and that group they will be with until graduation. So they really have an opportunity to develop a tight and a long-lasting relationship with that person over the next 3 years. Follow-up question to the daily schedule. Is the schedule the same every other day, or does it truly change daily?
The schedule does change daily. However, since it's an A through F day schedule, some of the days will repeat the next week. So let's say 1 week it's A, B, C, D, and E. The next week, starting on that Monday, will be F, and then you'll go back to A, B, C, and D, and kind of just go through that whole cycle. So you won't always have the same like schedule every day in a certain week, if that makes sense. But the class schedules will repeat on different days, just not every single day.
I have a question for parents. How easy is it to get involved at Flint Hill, and what are some of the ways you can get connected early in a school year?
Well, I guess I'm the person to answer that. Since I will be, hopefully you all will attend, your children will attend Flint Hill, and I will be knocking on all of your doors to get involved. But at Flint Hill, we love having the full family there. We consider ourselves a family. And so any way that you can kind of help out, whether that's attending a game, whether that is in upper school and helping at our concession stand that's open after school every day, it could be helping on one of these admissions panels. There's just so many ways to be involved, and more than anything else is to be present. So to come to homecoming. At Flint Hill, homecoming is really for the whole family. It's not just for the kids, and it's a fun day and a fun evening before. But I guess the biggest advice that I would give to everyone here is, if you do decide to come to Flint Hill, is to read the newsletter. Every Wednesday, there's the parents' newsletter. And in that does have our opportunities to get involved. And if you don't reach out, we'll reach out to you, but it's a great way to get started and fall in love with the school. That's how I met Jill. And that's now how I met Christina.
I would also say that attending events allows you to get to know other parents. And initially, you may be shy like I was, where you just kind of show up and you're smiling and you don't know anyone. However, Flint Hill has a wonderful, warm, welcoming presence. And so at the upper school family dinner, I started to meet additional parents. I started to connect with people, and Sibel is really wonderful about just connecting with people and saying like, hey, how are you? And then she's telling you all the great things about Flint Hill. I know that I was a person who wanted to volunteer to support Flint Hill in any way that I could, knowing that, as many of you, my schedule may not be open all the time. And so I was encouraged by Lauren South and Julie Lewis and others to join whenever I could. And that flexibility was very helpful and made me feel more a part of the school. I volunteered at the Igloo at the concession stand one time. I was nervous. I didn't want people to have a line, but everyone was gracious. Everyone is always helpful and welcoming. So please speak up, join, and we look forward to seeing you.
I have 3 students who are also student athletes, so any of you could probably take this question, but could you explain to our audience about how sports and extracurricular activities are built into the school day? Does it happen before the end of the day or after the end of the day? And maybe you can put a little plug in there for office hours.
Absolutely, I can take that question. So it's really nicely set up where you're still able to attend your sports, but also take advantage of the opportunities to see your teachers after school. So like Ms. Ayers was talking about, we have office hours, which is a dedicated time where you don't have athletics and you're dedicated that time to go and see your teachers. And for me personally, I came in November of my sophomore year, and I had a lot of catching up to do because I had missed the beginning of, the curriculum for sophomore year. And that time was perfect for me to still keep up with my athletics, but still be able to go to my teachers and see what I need to catch up on and get that one-on-one experience. And office hours, what it kind of looks like is, students, they can leave school if they want. But if you want to take advantage of the opportunity, you can just go to your teacher. Maybe you can talk to them before school, set up an appointment, and then you just have a meeting. You have a one-on-one meeting, and you can talk about curriculum. You can study for a test, work on homework together. And that was probably the most, that was the biggest advantage to coming to Flint Hill for me, especially after school, was being able to get that personalized experience with my teachers.
And to add on to what Patrick said, I think it's super important to stress how helpful office hours is. For me, my freshman year, I will be completely honest, I didn't really use my office hours, but now coming into sophomore year, I realized how important it was, and I was able to catch up on a lot of work. I was able to better understand what we were learning in class as well, because any question I felt I wasn't able to ask during my class, I was able to ask during this time. And some teachers will also be open to having longer office hour periods. So once office hours is over, they may be open to meeting with you even after school, or just extend their office hours to you to help you, because I would say the teachers at Flint Hill, all they really want for you as a student is for you to be successful and for you to completely understand and do well in school. So they'll do anything to help you. And office hours is definitely one of those things.
And we have a follow-up question on advisories. Once you are a 10th grader, are they mixed by grade or single grade? They are single grade. So they will stay with that advisor, and as they advance to the next grade, the 10th grade advisor is the same in the 11th grade and 12th, and it's a single grade group. Raj Rani asked about tutoring support. How often is this available? And that may be in reference to the office hours support. The student and or the teacher who decides the need to go to office hours. Do I have a student or a parent who would like to answer? How do you make choices about using office hours?
Typically, if you want to go to, let's say, science for office hours because you're confused, you just go to the class, because the teachers are required to actually stay there for that period of office hours unless they had to leave. So you can just go. However, you can also email the teacher if you want to say, hey, I'm a little confused on this. Could I stop by your room for office hours? And they'll be willing to help you. So I wouldn't say there's exactly, you have to reserve a spot or anything. You kind of just go to any teachers and however many teachers as you want during that time period.
As a transfer student starting from 10th grade, is there any orientation session and that can be arranged? we we do have orientation for our students regardless of the grade that they're entering. So at the beginning of the year, our first days of school actually are an orientation. And we do keep in mind that all of our students aren't joining us in ninth grade. So we have orientations for all of our grade levels.
Maybe something else that parents may be wondering about is the lunch. I don't know if that's anything that y'all are worrying or wondering about. So prior to the COVID year, we had a lunch in kind of a buffet style. It was very, very good food, if I have to be honest. And every single day was a different meal. They also had a section for like vegetarians. So if you didn't want to eat meat, you can always go to that area. We always also had dessert, and you'd have like salads and everything on the side. And then there was also like a drink fountain, so you could choose any of your drinks, and or you can get their infused water. However, if you didn't want to use eat Flint Hills food, you could always bring your own lunch as well. So it's completely up to you. However, it is offered in like tuition.
Parents, what have been your perceptions regarding assignment loads, homework? What do you see at home from your students in terms of being able to balance school, athletics, homework?
I'll just say that, for my son, he was new to ninth grade, and being the COVID year, he struggled a lot with the workload, and it was nothing to do with it being too much. It had everything to do with, personal responsibility of balancing his time and not opening up his second laptop and having a video game on the side, which I caught him doing a few times. It was a tough year. And I will say, coming from public school, not having maybe that rigor, especially in the writing and those high expectations. One point I remember kind of laughing with him. I was like, I shouldn't say his name, but I was like, lots of kids are extra, babe, but here, these kids are extra. So like, no, you can't just write 4 sentences. Like, you need to like put thought into it, like write 8 to 12 sentences and be that extra that, private school needs. So I did just kind of want to mention that, my kid was definitely more in the struggle category, but I did feel like he got a lot of attention and support from the teachers, which was really helpful.
I saw the same thing. My daughter transitioned from public school to Flint Hill in ninth grade. And what I noticed is that initially she was able to manage using the strategies that she had in the past. And as time went on and she recognized the rigor of what's expected of her and the workload, she then started to take advantage of office hours. If you do nothing else, please encourage your child to access office hours with their teachers, because their teachers really provide them with one-on-one or maybe 3-on-1 support in ways that they can't keep up the pace with the entire class. And it allows your child to have their specific need met versus what everyone else needs or someone else needs that they don't. And so by targeting that, they're able to be more and more successful. And what I found is that my daughter then had some intrinsic motivation to take more and more challenging classes as she progressed through Flint Hill, and she enjoyed them. And going to office hours may have a stigma in some places, but not at Flint Hill. Everyone goes to office hours. It's like, are you going to office hours? I'll meet you after office hours. And that was really refreshing. And I think the rigor of Flint Hill and the type of assignments that students have, their participation in clubs and sports allows them to have a balance. We talk about work-life balance, but they have an academic, social-emotional balance when they have that. And I noticed that she was able to regulate her studies better when she had a club or a sport to balance that out.
Thank you so much. I see we're getting close to our transition to the next component of this presentation, but Mr. Ronnie, I see your hand is up. You've been waiting. Thank you. So if you'd like to go ahead and ask your question, and then I will turn it back over to you, Jennifer, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Debbie. I wish that my student was like Jill's student. But no, it's not the case. I actually, everything that Christina said resonated really well with me. Being in public school, my kid, in the COVID year, everything was virtual. So he's going to be a rising sophomore. And in that, for Debbie and for the students, actually, and the parents, sorry, not Debbie, is in the public schools, in especially the advanced topics, what we noticed was that the school did not really, even though it's a great public school, has not done anything to meet the students' needs in terms of, oh, so we taught virtually and we haven't covered all of this, and now you're going on to the next section of that math or the science or language or whatever. How would you help a student who is considering Flint Hill to, assess that and help them get to the point where, okay, so you finished calculus and now you're going on to the next step. Let's see what are the holes in that Lego block. How do we help you? So how do you do that? The public schools are not doing that, and so that's a huge concern for us. They're just pushing the students just move on, and we as parents think that's irresponsible. And I'll shut up.
So this is how I think Flint Hill is so different. Is just what you said, Raj. So because it's small classes, the teachers really do get to know the children and they really see their work. It's not just turning in a test. I went to public school, so not just turning in tests. I was able to kind of skid underneath the radar of everyone. Here you cannot. They will know what you know and know what you don't know, and they will approach you about what you don't know. Not in a mean way, not in an accusatory way, but just try to help you. And like Corey had said, the teachers at Flint Hill, everyone at Flint Hill, the parents, everyone, they want the kids to succeed. This is the number one reason everyone's here. This is a sacrifice for all of us. And so everyone wants this to be the place for their kids to thrive. So we all kind of work together in that. But the teachers really do see it, and they push them forward in the right fit. But they do see it. So I think that is really Flint Hill, Raj.
Yeah, and I would definitely echo that. Like in my situation, I'm not the one that checks grades every single day. I have a busy job and a busy life. And, at this point, as a ninth grader, they should have that ownership and responsibility. But I was really impressed and saw a stark difference because I've got another kid in public. Whereas like, as soon as he started to get off track, like they were on the ball. And at one point I had a call with like everybody, like every teacher all on the same call, which was amazing. Like that really never happened in any other situation. So I will say, there is still definitely a need for personal responsibility and speaking up and using office hours and all that. But there's definitely that effort that's provided to really help the kids that may be on the struggling side.
All right, I see a few more questions, but Jennifer, I will turn it over to you, but I'm happy to capture the chat and I can respond back to you if you would like to reach out to the families afterward. I could answer these questions at that time.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me see. I got an error message when trying to share my screen here, so I'm going to try again. My name is Jennifer Webb, again, and I'm the Director of Enrollment Management and Financial Aid. So we'll go ahead and move into the admission segment of this, where we'll talk a little bit about the admission process. But like Debbie said, we will be sure to get in touch with anyone whose questions weren't answered. We'll make sure to capture them, and we'll be in touch soon because we do want to make sure that all of your questions do get answered. That's the purpose of this event today. So thank you very much to our wonderful panelists. Really appreciate you being here. And thank you to Debbie and John for leading us through the information about Flint Hill and about our upper school. And so after all of that, I am sure you are eagerly wondering how to apply if you haven't already applied or started the application process. So I will go into that now. So a little bit about the admission process at Flint Hill first. The admission process at Flint Hill, it is all about us getting to know each other. So we approach it the Flint Hill way, which is with transparent, supportive, intentional, inclusive dialogue throughout the process. And we always keep the mission of the institution, which John reviewed earlier in this event, and the student at the very center of everything that we do. And that starts with the admission process. So we ask families to bring their authentic selves to the process because we'll have a lot of big decisions to make together, and we'll certainly be transparent and direct, all with the goal of making the very best decision for every student together. So we aim, a lot of times people get a little bit anxious about admissions process, but we really aim for it to be as low stress as possible. We want you to enjoy getting to know us. We absolutely enjoy getting to know new families. So we'd really like to just focus on enjoying the journey together. And what that looks like is when you decide, if you haven't already, if you decide that you want to apply, certainly be in contact with one of your admission officers. We are here to help you throughout that process. I introduced Lauren and Julie earlier today. Another officer in the upper school is Justin Fitzgerald. And they'll help you throughout this entire process. The very first step is to submit the online application. So if you go anywhere on our website, there's an apply button. So you just click that. There's a direct link to that here. And once you submit the application form, which itself takes about 15 minutes to complete, you will, once that application form is processed by our team, which is usually within a day or so, you'll be, a checklist will be added to your Husky Hub account. That's our internal system for parents, faculty, staff. It's called Husky Hub. And that is, you start a log into that system when you do the application. So within about a day, you'll receive a checklist that's active, which tells you what we still require. And as we receive those items, it checks off on the checklist. So you're never at a loss for what we received and what we haven't received. The transcripts are required. So the most up-to-date transcripts and progress reports that you have, go ahead and request the official ones right away. But to expedite the process, that you can send us unofficial. That way we can start reviewing those right away. Recommendations are required, one from the current math teacher and one from the current English teacher. And then there are 2 questionnaires required. One is completed by the student and one is completed by the parent. A graded writing sample is required, and then the SSAT is actually optional for Flint Hills. So you can, it's up to the family to decide whether to submit that. If the child's academic experience and record and student profiles is pretty straightforward and has been pretty consistent over the years, then typically we can make a decision without that additional data point of the SSAT score report. If there has been any inconsistencies, or there might be some questions, or we might need more information, then the SSAT will be useful. So we really are glad to help families look at this on a case-by-case scenario. So if you're kind of wondering which of those 2 areas your child might fall into, talk with one of your admission officers, and we can certainly help navigate this. And then there is a parent, guardian, and student interview required as well. So that's just sitting down with the admission officer, having a conversation about your child and about Flint Hill. We also, another opportunity to answer your questions as well. And those are typically done separately. So we'll typically meet with the parent and the student separately in whichever order is preferred. So when to apply? So here is the timeline for the traditional year. So I'll go through that. And I know that some people that are here today are still interested, still seeking an educational partner for this upcoming year. So I'll go through the traditional timeline first and then speak to those who might be looking sooner. So the traditional timeline is the application opens on September 1 for the next academic year. So for 22-23. And we recommend that everybody submit the application in September, soon after that application opening, so that we can start the file together. You're on our radar. We have time to think through all the necessary steps. October is when you'll schedule the interview. It can take place in November or December, ideally no later than December, but you can go ahead and get that on the calendar by scheduling it in October. And also, if you or your child does decide that they're going to take the SSAT, then you'll want to go ahead and get that scheduled in October as well. In November is when you'll start to want to get the recommendations on the teacher's radar and request them to complete them. They'll usually complete them at the end of the semester, but you'll want to go ahead and get those over to them. There is a section in that checklist that I talked about that you just put in their email address, and you can even type up a note to be sent with them with the recommendation form, and our system sends them the specific recommendation form that we'd require to have on file. November is also when the financial aid application opens. Also a good time to request those official transcripts to be sent at the end of the semester for your current school. December, all pieces should be submitted, which might be a little bit confusing because you see in January is the actual deadline. And while the deadline is January 21st, we do recommend that you have everything complete in December. Most of the time, these processes are really smooth. We get everything in, we have a nice bow on it. It's great. But every once in a while, there may be some sort of hiccup with the teacher that we're having a hard time reaching. Maybe they're on maternity leave or out for some other reason, or having a hard time getting a transcripts, or there might be some obstacle that we need to overcome. And if you are aiming for that December timeline, that gives us a lot of time to think about alternatives and to overcome any obstacles or barriers there might be in getting some of these documents in. In the end of January is when the financial aid application is due for those interested in applying for our need-based financial aid program. And then in March is when the decision notifications go out in early March. The week after that, we have some revisit events and opportunities for the families to connect again with Flint Hill as they're making their decision. And towards the end of March is when the family decision is due back to Flint Hill. And then from there, we celebrate that we found each other. We celebrate that we're now partners. We start getting all of our ducks in a row to get your child started, ready to start at Flint Hill, both by connecting their social circles and starting friendships and community building with them, also in getting all of the informational pieces we need in line for them to start. So that is the typical timeline for applying. And so I do know that some of you attending today are looking ahead to 22, 23 or beyond, which is great. So this will be your timeline. I know that some people had been asking, well, I'm still looking for an educational partner for fall, and I'd really like Flint Hill to be that. And is that possible? And we do have some space in some areas. So when we get to this point of the year, the space that is still available, it comes kind of specific to which student profile can complete the class composition piece, because we are very intentional about class composition at Flint Hill. So the best thing to do is to connect right away with your admission officer or your admission officer if you're already in touch, and have an in-depth conversation about your student's profile and the capacity at Flint Hill for whichever grade or areas that your student is interested in. It also, some classes are full and we have space in some others. So it also depends on what courses they might be taking. So it gets pretty nuanced at this time of year. So there is opportunity for a lot of different profile and students. So please do get in contact with your officer to see if we can make that work for this year. And how do you do that? So if you go to that link there, there's some beautiful pictures of Julie, Justin, and Lauren. And if you go to that link, flinthill.org/admission team, you'll see that you can schedule a virtual meeting with them. You can schedule a phone call. You can always just email them or call them. Their contact information is there too. If you are interested in fall, do this right away. Today, tomorrow, as soon as possible. If you're interested in next year, then we have some time to work together. You'll just be looking, certainly, reach out if you have any questions. We'll be following up for those of you whose questions didn't quite get answered today. And you will, be here at any time throughout the cycle for those looking later. Another great way to continue to learn more about us, attend other events. They're not all the same. On our virtual events webpage, we have a list of previous events, recordings. A lot of them are topical or specific to our math progression or anxiety in teens and children, or some other topics. So feel free to view those. we're very active on social media. We had a segment on Instagram, Facebook, Vimeo, and YouTube this past year that admissions put on called Tuesday Tips, where those were all, they all stemmed from questions we were getting from families. So we hope that those are useful to families as they're navigating that process. And again, the virtual meetings and phone consultations. So that is the admission process. Is there any questions? I know we're a little bit over, so please, if you have to run to other meetings or other things today, really not at all offended if you need to log off, and you can always email later for with questions. Does anyone right now have any questions about the admission process or next steps with Flint Hill? Can go ahead and chat them in if you do. Okay, great. I see that some of our team members were answering some of the earlier questions in the chat. So thank you very much. Any other questions today before we sign off that we can either answer here or that we can follow up and answer another time? Okay, well, great. Well, thank you again. Thank you all so much for spending some time with us this morning. We're delighted that you're interested in Flint Hill. As you can tell, we all certainly think it is a very special place. And we hope that you found that to be true by attending this event too. And we hope to see you as part of our Flint Hill family really soon. So we look forward to continuing the conversation and hope that you have a wonderful day and afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being with us. Have a good rest of the summer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.